David Chen grabbed the old janitor by his collar and slammed him against the marble wall. "You ruined my wife's $50,000 dress, you worthless piece of trash." Marcus Johnson didn't fight back. He just stood there, calm, silent, while his 8-year-old daughter watched from the staff room doorway, tears streaming down her face. Security dragged Marcus out like a criminal. David laughed, brushing off his suit. "Fire him. Tonight, people like him don't belong in places like this." What David Chen didn't know would destroy everything he had built. That worthless janitor owned the hotel, the land beneath it, and the company that funded David's entire empire. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. The wine glass shattered against the floor first. Then came the scream. Victoria Chen's voice cut through the crowded ballroom like a knife through silk. Every head turned. Every conversation stopped. The string quartet fell silent mid-note. "Look what you've done!" Marcus Johnson stood frozen, a serving tray still balanced in his left hand. Red wine spread across the white marble floor, creeping toward Victoria's designer heels like blood from a wound. He had worked at the Wellington Hotel for 11 years. 11 years of early mornings and late nights. 11 years of invisible service. He had cleaned up after senators and celebrities. He had mopped floors after charity galas that raised more money in one night than he would earn in a lifetime. Never once had he made a mistake like this. "I'm so sorry, ma'am," Marcus said quietly. "Please let me help you." "Don't touch me." Victoria stepped back as if he carried a disease. Her dress, a custom Valentino in champagne silk, now wore a dark crimson stain across the bodice. She looked down at it, then up at Marcus, and her eyes filled with pure hatred. "Do you have any idea what this cost?" Marcus kept his voice steady. "I apologize, ma'am. The hotel will cover any cleaning or replacement." The Hotel Victoria laughed sharp and cruel. "This dress cost more than you make in 3 years. What could you possibly offer me?" The ballroom was silent now. 300 guests in tuxedos and evening gowns watched the scene unfold. Some looked embarrassed. Most looked entertained. Marcus felt his face grow hot, but he kept his composure. 23 years in this country had taught him that. He had learned early that a black man in America couldn't afford to show anger. Not in public. Not ever. "Again, ma'am, I'm deeply sorry. It was an accident." That's when David Chen arrived. He pushed through the crowd, his face already twisted with rage. David was tall for a man of Chinese descent, broad-shouldered with silver hair that made him look distinguished rather than old. At 58, he ran Chen Industries, one of the largest real estate development companies on the West Coast. At least that's what everyone believed. "What the hell is going on here?" Victoria pointed at Marcus. This janitor spilled wine all over me. Look at my dress, David. Look at it." David's eyes swept over Marcus from head to toe, the faded gray uniform, the name tag that read Marcus, Maintenance. The work boots scuffed and worn. Something ugly flickered across David's face. "You," he said slowly. "You did this." "Sir, it was an accident. Another guest bumped into me and—" David grabbed Marcus by the collar. The movement was so fast, so violent, that gasps rippled through the crowd. David slammed Marcus against the nearest marble pillar, his knuckles pressing hard against Marcus's throat. "Do you know who I am?" David hissed. "Do you have any idea who you're dealing with?" Marcus didn't struggle. He had been in this position before. Different men, different decades, same hatred in their eyes. "Sir, please, shut up." David's grip tightened. "You people always have excuses, don't you? Always someone else's fault. Never taking responsibility." Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. You people. There it was. The words that stripped away all pretense. "David, please." A voice from the crowd. "He's just a janitor. Let him go." David didn't turn around. "Stay out of this, Richard." But the voice persisted. "You're making a scene. The mayor is here. The press is outside." For a moment, David's grip loosened. Then Victoria spoke again. "He ruined my dress, David. He needs to be punished." David smiled. It was the smile of a man who had never been told no, who had never faced consequences, who believed that money made him untouchable. "You're right, darling." He released Marcus's collar and stepped back, straightening his jacket. "Security." Two guards appeared instantly. "This man assaulted my wife." Marcus's eyes widened. "What?" "No, I never—" He grabbed her when she confronted him about the spill. "I saw the whole thing." David turned to Victoria. "Didn't he, darling?" Victoria's lips curled into a smile. "Yes. He grabbed my arm. Hard. I think I might be bruised." "That's not true." Marcus's voice rose for the first time. "I never touched her." "Are you calling my wife a liar?" David stepped closer, lowering his voice so only Marcus could hear. "Listen carefully, boy. I'm going to have you arrested. I'm going to have you fired. And when I'm done, you won't be able to get a job cleaning toilets in this city. Do you understand me?" Marcus stared at him. For 11 years, he had kept his head down. For 11 years, he had swallowed his pride, accepted the insults, played the invisible man. All because he believed it was the right thing to do. The humble thing. The Christian thing. But in that moment, looking into David Chen's cold eyes, Marcus saw something that made his blood freeze. David wasn't just angry about the dress. He was enjoying this. "Security!" David said loudly, turning back to the crowd. "Remove this man from the building and call the police. I want him charged with assault." The guards grabbed Marcus's arms. "Daddy!" The voice was small, fragile. It cut through the noise like a whisper in a hurricane. Marcus's heart stopped. Lily stood in the doorway of the staff room, clutching her teddy bear. She was supposed to be doing her homework. She was supposed to be invisible, just like her father had taught her. But she had heard the commotion. She had come to find him, and now she was watching two security guards drag her father across the ballroom floor. "Daddy!" She ran toward him, her small legs pumping. "Let go of my daddy." One of the guards held up a hand to stop her. "Stay back, kid. That's my daddy. You're hurting him." Marcus struggled against the guards for the first time. "Lily, baby, go back to the room. It's okay. Daddy's okay." But Lily kept coming. Tears streamed down her face. Her teddy bear fell to the floor. Victoria Chen stared at the little girl with undisguised disgust. "Is that his child? She's been in the hotel this whole time?" David's eyes narrowed. "Wait!" He held up a hand and the guard stopped. Then he walked slowly toward Lily, crouching down to her level. "Hello there, little girl." Lily shrank back. "I want my daddy." "I'm sure you do." David's voice was soft, but his eyes were calculating. "Tell me something. Do you go to school?" Lily nodded, still crying. "Which school?" "Westbrook Academy." David's expression flickered. Westbrook Academy was the most exclusive private school in the city. Annual tuition was $45,000. Senators' children went there. Tech billionaires' children went there. "That's interesting." David stood slowly, turning to look at Marcus with new suspicion. "How does a janitor afford Westbrook Academy?" Marcus said nothing. "David, who cares?" Victoria was impatient now. "Just get rid of him." But David was no longer listening to his wife. He was studying Marcus with the intensity of a predator who had just realized his prey might be something else entirely. "What's your name?" David asked. "Your full name." "Marcus Johnson." "Johnson." David repeated it slowly as if tasting the word. "That's a common name. Very ordinary." Marcus met his gaze without flinching. "Yes, sir. Very ordinary." For a long moment, neither man spoke. Then David smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Get him out of here," he said to the guards. "But don't call the police. Not yet. I have some questions I want answered first." The guards dragged Marcus toward the service exit. Lily tried to follow, screaming for her father, but a female staff member held her back. "Daddy! Daddy, please!" Marcus looked over his shoulder one last time. His daughter's face was red and swollen with tears. Her little hands reached for him. Something broke inside Marcus Johnson that night. Something that had been carefully constructed over 23 years. And in its place, something else began to stir. 2 hours later, Marcus sat in the security office. His wrists were sore from the plastic zip ties they had used on him. His uniform was torn at the collar. But he was not afraid. He had made a phone call. One phone call to one number, and now he was waiting. The door opened and a man walked in. He was old, perhaps 80, with white hair and a face that had seen more than most. He wore a simple gray suit, no tie, no watch, no jewelry of any kind. He could have been a retired teacher, a librarian, someone's grandfather. He was Robert Williams, and he was worth $847 billion. Marcus. Robert's voice was gentle, but there was steel beneath it. I came as soon as I heard. Marcus stood, and for the first time that night, his composure cracked. They humiliated me in front of Lily Robert. They called me worthless. They called me... He stopped, unable to finish. Robert placed a hand on his shoulder. I know. I've already seen the footage. Footage? I own the security company that monitors this hotel. Robert's eyes were calm but cold. I've owned it for 15 years. Just like I own this hotel. Just like I own the building where David Chen's company is headquartered. Just like I own the bank that holds his mortgage, his business loans, and his children's trust funds. Marcus stared at him. I didn't know. You weren't supposed to. Robert sat down across from Marcus. When Elena married you, I had concerns. Not about you, about the world. My daughter wanted a normal life and I wanted to give her that. So I stayed invisible. I let you build your own life, your own career, your own identity. But Elena's been gone for 3 years. And you've honored her memory by raising Lily the same way. Simply, humbly, without the weight of my name. Robert paused. But tonight things have changed. Marcus shook his head. I don't want revenge, Robert. I just want to take Lily home and forget this ever happened. It's not about revenge. Robert's voice hardened. David Chen grabbed you by the throat and called you worthless in front of your daughter. He was going to have you arrested on false charges. His wife lied to support him. I know. Do you... Robert leaned forward. Marcus, do you know why I never appear in public? Why there are no photographs of me in any newspaper or magazine? Elena said you valued your privacy. Privacy is part of it, but the real reason is power. Robert's eyes were intense now. When people don't know who you are, they show you who they really are. They can't perform for you, can't hide their true nature. I've watched men like David Chen my entire life. They smile for the cameras, donate to charities, shake hands with politicians. But behind closed doors, they are predators. Marcus was silent. David Chen didn't just insult you tonight, Robert continued. He revealed himself, and in doing so, he gave me something I've been waiting for. What's that? Robert smiled, but it was not a warm smile. Justification. The next morning, Marcus woke to the sound of his phone buzzing. He had slept on the couch in Robert's penthouse suite, Lily curled beside him. She had cried herself to sleep, asking over and over why the mean man had hurt her daddy. Marcus had no answer for her. He checked his phone. 17 missed calls from the hotel's HR department, 3 from his supervisor, 1 from an unknown number. He ignored them all. Daddy? Lily's voice was small, sleepy. She rubbed her eyes and looked around the unfamiliar room. Morning, baby girl. Where are we? We're at Grandpa Robert's house. Remember, we visited here when you were little. Lily nodded slowly, still confused. Is Grandpa Robert Mommy's daddy? Yes, sweetheart. Is he rich? Marcus hesitated. Why do you ask? This room is really big. Lily looked around at the floor-to-ceiling windows, the modern art on the walls, the kitchen that was larger than their entire apartment. Our whole house could fit in here. Marcus pulled her close. Grandpa Robert has done very well for himself. Then why do we live in a small apartment? It was the question Marcus had avoided for 3 years. The question Elena had answered with a simple philosophy. We give Lily roots before we give her wings. Because baby girl money doesn't make you happy. Family makes you happy. Love makes you happy. Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "The mean man last night. He had lots of money, didn't he?" "Yes." "Was he happy?" Marcus thought about David Chen's eyes, the rage in them, the cruelty, the absolute certainty that he was entitled to treat other human beings like garbage. "No," Marcus said quietly. "I don't think he was." The door opened and Robert walked in. He was dressed simply as always, but there was something different about his posture. A tension that hadn't been there the night before. "Marcus, we need to talk." Dear. Robert's study was filled with screens. Financial data scrolled across half a dozen monitors, stock prices, property values, corporate filings, and on the largest screen, a photograph of David Chen. "I've spent the night having my team do a full investigation," Robert said. "What I've found is interesting." Marcus sat across from him. "What kind of investigation?" "David Chen's company, Chen Industries, has been hemorrhaging money for 3 years. They've been covering it up with creative accounting, but the fundamentals are rotten. They have 6 months, maybe less, before bankruptcy. So he's not as successful as he pretends. He's a fraud." Robert pulled up another document. "But here's what's really interesting. Chen Industries has stayed afloat because of one major investor, an anonymous investment fund that's pumped over $200 million into the company over the past 5 years. Marcus felt something cold in his stomach. "Anonymous." Robert nodded. "The fund is called Lighthouse Capital. It's managed through a series of shell companies in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, and Singapore. Virtually untraceable. But you traced it." "I trace everything." Robert turned to face Marcus. "Lighthouse Capital is a subsidiary of Williams Holdings. My company, my money." Marcus stared at him. "You've been funding David Chen's company." "Indirectly, yes. It was an investment made by my acquisitions team 15 years ago. I have thousands of such investments. I can't personally oversee every one." Robert's jaw tightened. "But I should have. Because for the past 3 years David Chen has been stealing from that fund, embezzling, cooking the books. He's taken over $47 million. From you. From me. From my shareholders. From my daughter's legacy." Robert's voice was quiet, but there was something dangerous beneath the surface. "And last night he put his hands on my granddaughter's father and called him worthless trash." Marcus was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "What are you going to do?" Robert turned to face the window. The city stretched out below them, towers of glass and steel, millions of people living their lives unaware of the invisible forces that shaped their world. "For 20 years I've stayed hidden," Robert said. "I've let men like David Chen believe they were powerful. I've watched them strut and boast and abuse the people beneath them. And I've done nothing because I believed that was the enlightened path, the peaceful path." He turned back to Marcus. "But last night I watched a man humiliate you in front of your daughter. I watched your little girl cry as security dragged you away like a criminal. And I realized something." "What?" Robert's eyes were cold now, cold and hard and filled with something that Marcus had never seen before. "Mercy is a privilege, and some men don't deserve it." 3 days later, David Chen sat in his corner office, celebrating. The charity gala had been a massive success. They had raised over $2 million for children's hospitals. The press coverage was glowing. The mayor had personally thanked him for his generosity. And that janitor fired, blacklisted, probably homeless by now. David smiled and sipped his scotch. "Mr. Chen?" His assistant Jennifer stood in the doorway. She looked nervous. "What is it?" "There's a man here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's urgent." David frowned. "Who is he?" "He says his name is James Morrison. He's a lawyer." Tell him to make an appointment like everyone else. Jennifer hesitated. Sir, he said to tell you it's about Lighthouse Capital. David's hand froze halfway to his mouth. The Scotch glass trembled slightly. Send him in. James Morrison was a tall man in an expensive suit. He carried a leather briefcase and moved with the confidence of someone who had never lost a case. Mr. Chen, thank you for seeing me. David didn't offer him a seat. What do you want? James set his briefcase on David's desk and opened it. Inside were stacks of documents, each one stamped with legal seals. I'm here on behalf of Williams Holdings, James said calmly. We've conducted an internal audit of Lighthouse Capital's investments, specifically the $200 million allocated to Chen Industries over the past 5 years. David's face paled. There must be some mistake. There's no mistake. James pulled out a thick folder. We have documented evidence of systematic embezzlement totaling $47.3 million. We have falsified financial statements, backdated contracts, and testimony from 3 former employees of your company. That's impossible. Those employees signed NDAs. James smiled. It was not a friendly smile. NDAs are void when they're used to conceal criminal activity, Mr. Chen. Surely you know that. David stood abruptly, his chair rolling back against the window. This is harassment. I'll have your license. You're welcome to try. James closed his briefcase. But I should inform you that as of 9 a.m. this morning, Williams Holdings has frozen all assets connected to Lighthouse Capital's investment in Chen Industries. Your corporate accounts are inaccessible. Your lines of credit have been suspended. And a formal complaint has been filed with the SEC. David's face was the color of ash. Who is behind this? James walked toward the door. Then he stopped and turned back. You asked a janitor his name 3 nights ago, James said. You didn't bother to remember it. But you should have, because Marcus Johnson is the son-in-law of Robert Williams. And Robert Williams doesn't forget. The door closed behind him. David Chen stood alone in his office, surrounded by his awards and his photographs and his illusions of power. And for the first time in his life, he understood what it meant to be truly afraid. That night, Marcus tucked Lily into bed. Daddy? Yes, baby girl. Are you still sad about what happened at the hotel? Marcus stroked her hair. A little, but I'm mostly happy. Why? Because I have you. He kissed her forehead. And because sometimes baby girl life has a way of balancing things out. Lily yawned. Like karma. Marcus smiled. Yes, exactly like karma. He turned off the light and watched his daughter drift to sleep. Through the window, the city glittered with a million lights. Somewhere out there, David Chen was learning what it meant to lose everything. But Marcus felt no joy in that. Only peace. Because Elena had taught him that revenge was poison, that anger was a prison. But justice was different. Justice was simply the truth finally told. And the truth was only beginning. The news spread through the city like wildfire. Chen Industries, the real estate giant that had built half of downtown's luxury towers, was under federal investigation. The SEC had frozen assets. Banks were calling in loans. And David Chen, the golden boy of West Coast development, was suddenly nowhere to be found. Marcus watched it all unfold from Robert's penthouse, a cup of coffee growing cold in his hands. You're troubled, Robert said, joining him by the window. I didn't ask for this. No, you didn't. Robert stood beside him, looking out at the city. But David Chen did. Every choice he made over the past decade led him to this moment. You simply removed the mask he was hiding behind. Marcus shook his head. It doesn't feel like justice. It feels like destruction. Sometimes they're the same thing. Lily's laughter drifted in from the other room where she was playing with Robert's housekeeper, Maria. The sound made Marcus's chest ache. 3 days ago, that little girl had watched her father being dragged across a marble floor like a criminal. She still woke up at night crying, asking if the bad man was going to come back. "I want to go home," Marcus said quietly. "Back to our apartment. Back to normal." Robert turned to look at him. "Is that what you really want? To pretend none of this happened?" "I want Lily to have a childhood, a real one, not one filled with lawyers and investigations, and—" Marcus stopped, running a hand over his face. "Elena wanted her to grow up humble, to understand that money doesn't define a person. Elena also wanted her to grow up safe." Robert's voice was gentle but firm. "David Chen knows who you are now. He knows about Lily. Do you really think he'll let this go? Men like him don't accept defeat. They seek revenge." Marcus was silent. "I'm not asking you to change who you are," Robert continued. "I'm asking you to protect what you love. There's a difference." Before Marcus could respond, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered it. "Mr. Johnson." A woman's voice, professional but warm. "This is Sarah Mitchell from Westbrook Academy. I'm calling about your daughter Lily." Marcus's stomach tightened. "Is she okay?" "Oh, she's fine. She's not in school today, of course. But we've received... well, there's been a situation." "What kind of situation?" A pause. "We've received a formal complaint from another parent, Victoria Chen. She's alleging that your employment status makes you ineligible for enrollment under our financial verification policy. She's demanding that Lily be removed from the school." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. "She can't do that." "Mrs. Chen has significant influence on our board of trustees," Sarah said carefully. "I'm not saying she's right, I'm saying she's making noise. The headmaster has called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning." "Tomorrow." "I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson. I know this is sudden, but I wanted to give you a chance to respond before any decisions are made." Marcus hung up and stared at the phone in his hand. Robert had been listening. "What is it?" "Victoria Chen. She's trying to get Lily expelled from school." Robert's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Something cold and calculating. "I see," he said quietly. "So they've decided to target the child. I have to stop this. I have to—" "You have to do nothing." Robert placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Let me make a phone call." "Robert, I don't want—" "Marcus." Robert's voice was sharp now. "They went after your daughter. There are lines that should never be crossed. This is one of them." He walked to his study and closed the door. Marcus stood alone, his heart pounding. He had spent his entire adult life avoiding confrontation, turning the other cheek, believing that dignity meant silence. But watching his daughter cry in her sleep had changed something in him. Maybe Robert was right. Maybe mercy was a privilege. And maybe the Chens had forfeited it. The board meeting at Westbrook Academy was scheduled for 9 a.m. Marcus arrived at 8:45 wearing the only suit he owned. It was 10 years old, bought for Elena's funeral, and it hung slightly loose on his frame. He had lost weight since then. Grief had a way of hollowing a man out. The Academy's main building was all red brick and white columns designed to look like it had been there for centuries. Old money pretending to be older. Marcus had always felt out of place here, dropping Lily off in his work boots while other parents pulled up in Mercedes and BMWs. But he had never let Lily see that discomfort. Today, he walked through the front doors with his head held high. The boardroom was on the second floor. Through the glass walls, Marcus could see them already seated around a long mahogany table. Victoria Chen sat at the far end, dressed in white, her posture perfect. She looked like a woman who had never been told no. Beside her sat David Chen. Marcus stopped. He hadn't expected David to be here. The man was supposed to be hiding, dealing with the SEC investigation, scrambling to save his crumbling empire. But there he was, smiling, shaking hands with board members, acting as if nothing had happened. As if he hadn't grabbed Marcus by the throat 3 nights ago. As if he hadn't made a little girl cry. Marcus pushed through the door. Every head turned. David's smile flickered just for a moment. Then it returned wider than before. "Ah, Mr. Johnson." His voice was smooth, condescending. "So glad you could join us. We were just discussing your daughter's situation." "Her situation?" Marcus kept his voice steady. "You mean the fake complaint your wife filed?" Victoria's eyes narrowed. "There's nothing fake about it. The school has clear policies about financial verification. Parents must demonstrate stable income and I've paid Lily's tuition in full for the past 3 years. Every semester on time. Check your records." "That's not the point." Victoria leaned forward. "The point is that you're a janitor, a maintenance worker. This school has standards. We can't have just anyone walking through these halls." "Just anyone?" Marcus felt heat rising in his chest. "My daughter has a 4.0 GPA. She's in the gifted program. She's won 2 academic awards this year alone. But that doesn't matter to you, does it? All you see is her father's uniform." The board members shifted uncomfortably. The headmaster, a thin man named Gerald Price, cleared his throat. "Mr. Johnson, please. Let's keep this civil." "Civil." Marcus turned to him. 3 days ago, this woman's husband assaulted me in public and tried to have me arrested on false charges. Now they're trying to punish my daughter for it. Where's the civility in that?" David stood slowly. "That's a serious accusation, Mr. Johnson. Be careful with your words." "I have security footage, Mr. Chen. The whole thing is on video. You grabbing me by the throat. Your wife lying about assault. Everything." The room went silent. David's smile finally cracked. Just a little. Just enough for Marcus to see the fear underneath. "This is ridiculous," Victoria snapped. "Gerald, I demand that this man be removed. He's clearly unstable." "Actually," a new voice said from the doorway, "I think he should stay." Everyone turned. A woman walked in. She was in her 60s, silver-haired, elegant, in a way that didn't require designer labels. She moved with the quiet confidence of someone who didn't need to announce her importance. Gerald Price nearly fell out of his chair. "Mrs. Williams, we weren't expecting you." "Clearly." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I was in the area. Thought I'd sit in on this meeting." Marcus stared at her. He had never met Robert's wife. Elena had spoken of her mother only briefly, with a mixture of love and distance. Margaret Williams had spent the past 20 years running a global children's charity, rarely returning to the States. But she was here now. And from the look on the Chen's faces, they knew exactly who she was. "Margaret," Victoria said, her voice suddenly sweet. "What a surprise. I didn't realize you were involved with the school." "I'm not, officially." Margaret took a seat at the head of the table as if it had been reserved for her. "But I do happen to sit on the foundation that provides 40% of Westbrook's scholarship funding. So I have a passing interest in how this institution treats its students." Gerald Price was sweating now. "Mrs. Williams, I assure you this is simply a routine review of a complaint filed by Victoria Chen against an 8-year-old girl whose only crime is having a father who works for a living." Margaret's voice was ice. "Yes, I've read the filing. Fascinating document. No actual policy violations cited. No academic concerns. Just a vague suggestion that Lily Johnson doesn't belong here because her father wears a uniform." Victoria's face reddened. "That's not—" "I also found it interesting," Margaret continued, "that this complaint was filed exactly 48 hours after the SEC announced its investigation into Chen Industries, almost as if someone was lashing out at the wrong target." David stepped forward. "Now wait just a minute. Sit down, Mr. Chen." Something in Margaret's voice made him obey. She turned to the board members one by one. "Let me be very clear. If this complaint is not withdrawn by the end of this meeting, I will personally recommend that the Williams Foundation redirect its scholarship funding to institutions that don't discriminate against children based on their parents' occupation. That's roughly $12 million a year. I trust you can do the math." The board members exchanged panicked glances. Gerald Price cleared his throat. "Mrs. Chen, perhaps it would be best if we—" "Fine." Victoria's voice was tight with fury. I withdraw the complaint. Wonderful. Margaret stood brushing invisible lint from her sleeve. I'm so glad we could resolve this civilly. She walked to Marcus and extended her hand. Her grip was firm, her eyes warm. My granddaughter is lucky to have a father like you, she said quietly. Elena chose well. Marcus couldn't speak. He just nodded. Margaret smiled, then turned and left the room without another word. The meeting disbanded quickly after that. Board members practically ran for the exits, eager to distance themselves from the Chens. Gerald Price apologized profusely to Marcus, promising that Lily's enrollment was secure. But Marcus barely heard him. He was watching David and Victoria Chen huddled in the corner, whispering furiously. David looked up and caught his eye. There was no anger in his expression now, just cold, calculating hatred. This isn't over, that look said. Not by a long shot. Marcus held his gaze for a long moment. Then he turned and walked out. He had spent his whole life avoiding enemies. Now, he had two. And something told him they were just getting started. That afternoon, Marcus picked Lily up from Maria's care and took her to the park. It was their ritual established after Elena's death. No matter what happened, no matter how hard the day had been, they always found time for the swings. Lily pumped her legs, going higher and higher. Daddy, watch, I'm touching the sky. I see you, baby girl, be careful. She laughed, and the sound was so pure that Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. This was why he had stayed hidden. This was why he had cleaned floors and swallowed his pride. To protect this moment, this joy, this innocence. His phone buzzed. A text from Robert. Come to the office tomorrow, 10 a.m. There are things you need to see. Marcus stared at the message for a long moment. Then he put the phone away and pushed Lily higher on the swing. Tomorrow could wait. Today was for his daughter. Robert's office was not what Marcus expected. It was located in a nondescript building downtown, the kind of place you would walk past without noticing. No flashy signage. No security guards in the lobby. Just a simple door with a simple nameplate that read, Williams Consulting. Inside, however, was a different world. The entire floor was a command center. Analysts sat at rows of computers monitoring financial markets, tracking investments, managing the invisible empire that Robert had built over 60 years. Nobody looked up when Marcus entered. They were too focused on their screens. Robert met him at the elevator. Thank you for coming. Your wife saved Lily's school enrollment yesterday, Marcus said. I should be thanking you. Margaret does as she pleases, always has. Robert smiled slightly. She took one look at the complaint and was on a plane within the hour. Victoria Chen made a serious tactical error targeting a child. Margaret has very strong feelings about children. They walked to a private conference room. The walls were covered with photographs, documents, and what looked like a massive organizational chart connecting dozens of names and companies. In the center of it all was David Chen's face. What is this? Marcus asked. Evidence. Robert gestured to a chair. Please sit. This may take a while. For the next 2 hours, Robert walked him through everything. David Chen had built his empire on fraud. Not just the embezzlement from Lighthouse Capital, but a pattern of criminal behavior stretching back 15 years. Bribery of city officials to secure building permits. Exploitation of immigrant workers on construction sites. Environmental violations covered up with payoffs. Even a wrongful death case that had been quietly settled out of court. He's been untouchable because he has connections, Robert explained. Politicians, judges, business leaders. He's donated to every campaign, attended every gala, played the role of philanthropist perfectly. People see what they want to see. And now? Now he's desperate. Robert pulled up a new document on the screen. The SEC investigation has frozen his assets, but he still has allies. Powerful people who don't want to see him go down because it might expose their own secrets. He's calling in every favor, threatening every enemy, doing everything he can to survive. Marcus studied the web of connections. So he might actually get away with it. He might, Unless someone stops him. You mean unless you stop him? Robert was quiet for a moment. No, Marcus. I mean unless you do. Marcus stared at him. What? I've spent my entire life building things from the shadows, manipulating, maneuvering, always 10 steps ahead. But I've never been the face of anything. I've never stood in front of a camera, or testified in a courtroom, or looked a man in the eye and told him the truth. Why would I do that? Because David Chen didn't attack me, he attacked you. Robert leaned forward. 3 nights ago, he grabbed you by the throat in front of 300 witnesses and called you worthless. He did that because he saw a black man in a janitor's uniform and assumed you were powerless. He assumed wrong. So this is about making a point. This is about showing the world who you really are. Robert's voice was intense now. Marcus, you've spent 11 years hiding, pretending to be small, letting men like David Chen walk all over you because you thought that was the noble thing to do. But it's not noble. It's just invisible. Marcus felt anger flare in his chest. You don't know what it's like. Being invisible is survival. It's how my father stayed alive. It's how his father stayed alive. I know. Robert's voice softened. I know the history. I know the fear. But your daughter is watching you, Marcus, and she's learning what it means to be a Johnson. Is this what you want to teach her? That the only way to survive is to be invisible? Marcus couldn't answer. Elena loved you because you were strong, Robert continued. Not because you were quiet. She saw something in you that you've been hiding from the world. Maybe it's time to let other people see it too. The words hung in the air. Marcus thought about Lily, about the way she had looked at him when security dragged him away, about the tears in her eyes when she asked if she was trash like the mean man said, about the promise he had made to Elena 3 years ago in her hospital room. Protect our daughter. Teach her to be brave. He had tried to protect her by being invisible, but maybe that wasn't the same thing as being brave. What do you need me to do? Marcus asked finally. Robert slid a folder across the table. There's a gala next week, the City Development Association's annual banquet. 500 of the most powerful people in the city will be there, including David Chen. He's scheduled to receive a Lifetime Achievement Award. You want me to crash a gala? I want you to attend it, as Marcus Johnson, son-in-law of Robert Williams, as the legal owner of 6 properties that David Chen claims as his own, as a man who has every right to be in that room. Marcus opened the folder. Inside was an invitation embossed in gold. David Chen is going to stand on that stage and pretend to be a hero, Robert said. I want you to be there when the truth comes out. Marcus looked at the invitation for a long moment. Then he nodded. I'll be there. The next few days passed in a blur of preparation. Robert's team outfitted Marcus with a new wardrobe, not flashy or ostentatious, but tailored and elegant, the kind of clothes that whispered money rather than shouted it. They briefed him on every guest who would be at the gala. Politicians, developers, investors, journalists. They taught him which hands to shake, which conversations to avoid, which power dynamics to navigate. But Marcus wasn't interested in politics. He was interested in truth. The night before the gala, he sat in Lily's room watching her sleep. She looked so much like Elena, the same curve of her cheek, the same way her nose wrinkled when she dreamed. Sometimes when the light hit her just right, Marcus could swear his wife was still alive. I miss you, he whispered to the darkness. I wish you could tell me if I'm doing the right thing. The silence was his only answer. But somewhere deep in his heart he felt Elena's presence, her warmth, her strength. You know what to do, she seemed to say. You've always known. Marcus kissed Lily's forehead and walked out of the room. Tomorrow, everything would change. And for the first time in his life, he was ready. The limousine pulled up to the Grand Belmont Hotel at exactly 7 p.m. Marcus sat in the back, his hands clasped tight in his lap. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. The suit Robert had chosen for him fit perfectly, charcoal gray with subtle pinstripes, but it felt like armor. Heavy. Foreign. A costume for a man he wasn't sure he could become. "You're ready for this," Robert said beside him. "Am I?" "You've been ready your whole life. You just didn't know it." The door opened. A valet extended his hand. Marcus stepped out into a sea of camera flashes. He had never been photographed before. Not like this. Not with journalists shouting questions and society reporters craning their necks to identify the newcomer in the expensive suit. "Who is that? I don't recognize him." "Is he someone important?" Marcus kept his head high and walked toward the entrance. Robert followed a few steps behind, deliberately invisible, letting Marcus take center stage. Inside the ballroom was packed with the city's elite. 500 guests in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, sipping champagne and exchanging air kisses. Crystal chandeliers cast everything in golden light. A string orchestra played softly in the corner. And there at the center of it all stood David Chen. He was surrounded by admirers. Politicians clapped him on the back. Businessmen laughed at his jokes. Society women touched his arm and leaned in close. He looked like a king holding court. Marcus watched him for a long moment, feeling something cold settle in his chest. This was the man who had grabbed him by the throat, who had called him worthless, who had made his daughter cry, and tonight this man was going to receive a Lifetime Achievement Award. "Marcus." He turned. Robert had appeared beside him. "Remember the plan. Don't approach him directly. Let him come to you. And if he doesn't, he will." Robert's eyes flickered toward the stage where a large screen displayed the evening's program. When the truth comes out, he won't be able to help himself. Marcus nodded and moved deeper into the crowd. He had been invisible his whole life. Tonight that would change. The first hour was torture. Marcus moved through the ballroom like a ghost, accepting champagne he didn't drink, nodding at strangers who looked through him with polite indifference. Nobody knew who he was. Nobody cared. But he noticed the whispers starting. Small groups huddled together, checking their phones, exchanging confused glances. Something was happening outside this room. Something that was slowly seeping in. "Did you see the news? Chen Industries. I heard the SEC is expanding the investigation. They're saying it could be criminal. Federal charges." Marcus kept his face neutral, but inside his pulse quickened. Robert's team was releasing information strategically timed to coincide with the gala. By the time David took the stage, the whole room would know. "Excuse me." Marcus turned. A woman stood before him, mid-50s, sharp eyes behind elegant glasses. She extended her hand. "I'm Patricia Moreno. I write for the Financial Tribune. I don't believe we've met." "Marcus Johnson." "Johnson." She tilted her head, studying him. "You're not on the guest list. I've checked. I was a late addition." "I see." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "And what brings you here tonight? Mr. Johnson, business pleasure?" "Justice." The word slipped out before Marcus could stop it. Patricia's eyebrows rose. "That's an interesting answer for a charity gala. Care to elaborate?" Before Marcus could respond, a commotion rippled through the room. Heads turned toward the entrance. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Victoria Chen had arrived. She swept in like a queen, dressed in a floor-length red gown that probably cost more than Marcus's annual salary at the hotel. Her smile was radiant, practiced, perfect. She kissed cheeks and accepted compliments as if the past week had never happened. As if she hadn't tried to expel an 8-year-old girl from school. As if her husband wasn't under federal investigation. Patricia followed Marcus's gaze. "You know the Chens? We've met." "Interesting." She pulled out a small notepad. "There are rumors that David Chen's empire is crumbling, that the SEC has evidence of massive fraud. But the Chens are acting like everything is fine. Either they're delusional, or they know something we don't. Maybe they're just good actors. Maybe." Patricia studied him again. "Or maybe someone in this room knows the truth and is waiting for the right moment to reveal it." Marcus said nothing. Patricia smiled. "I'll be watching Mr. Johnson. Something tells me tonight is going to be memorable." She disappeared into the crowd. Marcus exhaled slowly. The room felt smaller now. Hotter. The walls closing in. His phone buzzed. A text from Robert. Phase 2 is complete. All major networks have the documents. It goes live in 30 minutes right when David takes the stage. Marcus looked up at the platform where the evening's presenters were gathering. A podium had been set up flanked by 2 large screens. The Lifetime Achievement Award sat on a velvet cushion gleaming under the lights. 30 minutes. He found a quiet corner and tried to calm his breathing. Lily's face floated before him. Her tears. Her voice asking if she was trash. No baby girl, he thought. You're not trash. And after tonight, nobody will ever make you feel that way again. 28 minutes later, the room fell silent. A distinguished older man took the podium. Thomas Wright, chairman of the City Development Association, silver-haired and confident. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us this evening. Tonight we honor a man whose vision has transformed our city's skyline. A philanthropist, a pioneer, a true leader in urban development. Marcus watched David Chen straighten his tie, preparing to take the stage. Victoria beamed beside him. It is my great pleasure to present this year's Lifetime Achievement Award to David Chen. Applause erupted. David strode to the podium, shaking hands with Thomas, turning to face the crowd with his practiced smile. He gripped the edges of the podium and looked out at his admirers. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is truly an honor. The applause died down. When I started Chen Industries 25 years ago, I had nothing. Just a dream and a willingness to work harder than anyone else. I built this company brick by brick, deal by deal, always with one goal in mind, to create something that would last. He paused, letting the words sink in. Tonight, I want to thank the people who made this possible. My incredible team, my partners, my investors, and of course my beautiful wife Victoria, who has stood beside me through everything. Victoria blew him a kiss. The audience cooed. But most of all, David continued, I want to thank this city. You took a chance on me. You believed in my vision. And together we've built something extraordinary. More applause. Marcus checked his phone. The documents should be going live right now. Every major news outlet in the country was receiving detailed evidence of David Chen's crimes. Any second now. David was still talking, his voice smooth and confident. The secret to success isn't talent or luck. It's integrity. It's doing the right thing even when no one is watching. It's treating every person you meet with respect and dignity, from the CEO to the janitor. Marcus felt something twist in his gut. The janitor. David's eyes scanned the crowd as he spoke, and for a split second, they locked onto Marcus. Recognition flickered. David's smile faltered just for an instant. Then his phone buzzed. Then Victoria's phone buzzed. Then phones all around the room began buzzing, chiming, vibrating. David tried to continue. As I was saying, integrity is... But the audience was no longer listening. People were staring at their screens. Gasps rippled through the room. Someone dropped a champagne glass. Oh my God! Is this real? The SEC documents, they're everywhere. Thomas Wright hurried to the podium and whispered something in David's ear. David's face went pale. On the large screens behind him, the evening's program suddenly vanished. In its place appeared a document blown up for everyone to see. Chen Industries. Internal audit. Evidence of systematic fraud. The room erupted. What the hell is this? Someone hacked the screens. Call security. David grabbed the microphone. This is obviously some kind of prank. A jealous competitor trying to... The screen changed again. A new document appeared. Embezzlement records. $47.3 million. Diverted to personal accounts. Those aren't real. David's voice was cracking now. Another document. Witness testimony. Former CFO details. Pattern of criminal activity. Victoria pushed through the crowd toward the stage. David, what's happening? But David couldn't answer. He was staring at the screen, watching his entire life unravel in real time. Another document. SEC criminal referral formal charges recommended. The room was chaos now. Journalists were shouting questions. Security guards were trying to reach the tech booth. Guests were backing away from the Chens like they carried a disease. And then a voice cut through the noise. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I may." Every head turned. Marcus Johnson stood at the back of the room, his voice calm and clear. "My name is Marcus Johnson. 2 weeks ago, I was a janitor at the Wellington Hotel. David Chen grabbed me by the throat and called me worthless in front of my 8-year-old daughter." The room went silent. Marcus walked forward slowly, deliberately. "He tried to have me arrested on false assault charges. His wife lied to support him. When that didn't work, they tried to have my daughter expelled from her school." He stopped at the foot of the stage, looking up at David. "You asked me once if I knew who you were, Mr. Chen. Let me tell you who I am." David was frozen, his face white as paper. "My wife was Elena Williams, daughter of Robert and Margaret Williams. When she died 3 years ago, I inherited her share of Williams Holdings. Every property your company has developed in the past 10 years sits on land that belongs to me. Every loan that kept your business afloat came from my family's investment fund. The hotel where you humiliated me, I own it." Gasps filled the room. "You called me worthless." Marcus continued, his voice steady. "You looked at my uniform and decided I was nothing. But the truth is, Mr. Chen, I could have destroyed you at any moment. I chose not to. I chose to be invisible because I wanted my daughter to grow up humble. Because I believed that dignity meant silence." He climbed the first step of the stage. "I was wrong." David finally found his voice. This is slander. You're lying. I'll sue you for everything you... Sue me." Marcus almost laughed. "Mr. Chen, as of this morning, Williams Holdings has acquired all outstanding debts connected to Chen Industries. Your company doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to me." Victoria screamed. "That's impossible, David, do something." But David couldn't do anything. He stood there gripping the podium, watching his world collapse. Marcus reached the top of the stage and stood face to face with the man who had humiliated him. "You wanted to teach me a lesson that night," Marcus said quietly, so only David could hear. "About power, about knowing your place. Let me teach you something instead." He leaned closer. "Real power doesn't grab people by the throat. Real power doesn't need to prove itself. Real power is being able to destroy someone and choosing not to." He stepped back. "But you didn't give me that choice. You went after my daughter, and that is something I will never forgive." David's legs gave out. He collapsed into a chair, his hands shaking. Security finally reached the stage, but they seemed confused about who to remove. The screens were still displaying documents. Journalists were streaming everything live. Patricia Moreno appeared at the foot of the stage, notepad in hand. "Mr. Johnson, can you confirm that you're the son-in-law of Robert Williams, the Robert Williams?" Marcus looked at her. "Yes. And the documents being displayed tonight, they're authentic. Every single one. The SEC has the originals. Federal prosecutors will have them by morning." The room exploded with questions. "Mr. Johnson, what are your plans for Chen Industries? Will there be criminal charges? How long have you known about the fraud?" Marcus held up his hand. The noise subsided. "I came here tonight for one reason," he said. "To show my daughter that her father is not worthless, that no one is worthless, and that the truth, no matter how long it takes, always comes out." He turned and walked off the stage. The crowd parted for him like water. Behind him, David Chen sat motionless, staring at nothing. Victoria was sobbing. Security guards were finally ushering guests toward the exits. Robert was waiting at the door. "That was quite a speech," he said quietly. "I meant every word." "I know." Robert placed a hand on his shoulder. Elena would have been proud. Marcus didn't trust himself to speak. He just nodded. They walked out into the night air. Behind them, the gala was dissolving into chaos. Sirens were approaching. News vans were already lining up outside. But Marcus felt strangely calm. For 11 years he had been invisible. Tonight he had finally been seen. And tomorrow his daughter would wake up knowing that her father was not a man who could be pushed aside. That was worth everything. Marcus got home after midnight. Maria was asleep on the couch, the TV still murmuring softly. He thanked her quietly and sent her home. Then he walked to Lily's room. She was sleeping peacefully, her teddy bear clutched against her chest. The same teddy bear that had fallen on the ballroom floor 2 weeks ago when security had dragged him away. Marcus sat on the edge of her bed watching her breathe. "I did it, baby girl," he whispered. "I stood up, just like you wanted me to." Lily stirred. Her eyes fluttered open. "Daddy." "Hey, sweetheart, go back to sleep." "Where were you?" "I had to go to a party." "A party?" She rubbed her eyes. "Was it fun?" Marcus smiled. "Parts of it were." "Did you make any friends?" He thought about Patricia Moreno and her notepad, about the journalists who would be calling tomorrow, about the world that was about to discover who Marcus Johnson really was. "I don't know yet," he said honestly. "We'll see." Lily yawned. "Daddy." "Yes, baby." "I'm glad you're home." She closed her eyes and drifted back to sleep. Marcus stayed there for a long time, watching her chest rise and fall. Tomorrow would bring chaos. Interviews, lawyers, questions he didn't know how to answer. But right now, in this moment, there was only peace. Only his daughter. Only love. And that was enough. The next morning, every news outlet in the country was running the same story. Billionaire son-in-law exposes real estate mogul's massive fraud. Janitor revealed as hidden heir to Williams' fortune. David Chen facing federal indictment after gala humiliation. Marcus turned off the TV and made breakfast for Lily. She came bouncing into the kitchen, unaware of the storm swirling outside. "Pancakes?" she asked hopefully. "Pancakes," he confirmed. They ate together in comfortable silence. Through the window, Marcus could see news vans parked on the street. Reporters were camped out on the sidewalk. His phone had been ringing non-stop since 6 a.m. He had turned it off. "Daddy, why are there trucks outside?" Marcus hesitated. "Some people want to talk to me about something." "About what?" He looked at his daughter. Her innocent eyes. Her curious face. She had no idea that her world was about to change forever. "Do you remember the mean man from the hotel?" Lily's face darkened. "The one who hurt you?" "Yes. Well, Daddy found out that he did some very bad things, and I told people about it." "Like a superhero?" Marcus laughed softly. "Not exactly. More like someone who finally stopped being afraid." Lily considered this. "Mommy used to say that being brave means doing scary things." Marcus's chest tightened. "Mommy was right." "Are you scared now?" He looked at the news vans outside, at the reporters with their cameras and microphones, at the life he had built so carefully crumbling and reforming into something new. "A little," he admitted. Lily reached across the table and took his hand. "That's okay, Daddy. I'll be brave with you." Marcus squeezed her hand, unable to speak. In that moment, he knew that whatever came next, whatever chaos the world threw at them, they would face it together. Father and daughter. Visible at last. The weeks that followed were a hurricane. Marcus gave exactly one interview. Patricia Moreno from the Financial Tribune sat across from him in Robert's study, her recorder running her pen moving across page after page. "Why did you stay hidden for so long?" she asked. "Because my wife wanted our daughter to grow up without the weight of expectation. She believed that privilege was something you earned, not something you inherited." "And now that everyone knows who you are..." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Now I have to teach Lily something different. That being seen isn't the same as being vain. That using your voice isn't the same as seeking attention. Some people are calling you a hero. I'm not a hero. I'm a father who got tired of watching his daughter cry." The interview went viral within hours. Millions of people read about the janitor who had been secretly one of the wealthiest men in America. The story became a symbol, a modern fable about hidden worth and earned respect. But Marcus didn't feel like a symbol. He felt tired, and he couldn't stop thinking about David Chen. The federal indictment came down 3 weeks after the gala. 37 counts: wire fraud, securities fraud, tax evasion, money laundering, conspiracy. The documents that Robert's team had compiled were devastating. Former employees testified. Bank records confirmed everything. David's own emails recovered from company servers painted a picture of systematic criminal enterprise spanning more than a decade. The judge set bail at $15 million. David couldn't pay it. All of his assets had been frozen. The houses, the cars, the investment accounts. Everything had been seized as evidence or claimed by creditors. Chen Industries was in receivership, its employees scrambling to find new jobs, its projects abandoned halfway to completion. Victoria filed for divorce the day after the indictment. She released a statement through her lawyer claiming that she had been deceived by her husband, that she had no knowledge of his criminal activities, that she was cooperating fully with federal investigators. Nobody believed her, but nobody could prove otherwise. 3 months later, Marcus received an unexpected visitor. He was working in the garden behind Robert's house pulling weeds while Lily played nearby. The spring sun was warm on his back. Birds sang in the trees. For a few hours each day, he could pretend that his life was still simple. "Mr. Johnson." He looked up. A woman stood at the garden gate. She was younger than Victoria, perhaps early 30s, with tired eyes and a face that had once been beautiful. She wore simple clothes, no jewelry, no makeup. Her hands trembled as she gripped the fence. "Can I help you?" Marcus asked, rising slowly. "I'm Sarah Chen, David's daughter." Marcus froze. He hadn't known David had children from a previous marriage. Robert's investigation had mentioned them briefly, 2 adult children who had distanced themselves from their father years ago, but Marcus had never expected to meet them. "May I come in?" Sarah asked. "Please, I just want to talk." Marcus hesitated. Lily was watching from her swing, curious but not afraid. "5 minutes," he said finally. They sat on a bench near the vegetable garden. Sarah kept her hands folded in her lap, her shoulders hunched as if bracing for a blow. "I want to apologize," she said quietly. "For what? For my father. For what he did to you. For all of it." Marcus studied her face. There was genuine pain there, not the practiced grief of someone seeking sympathy. "You're not responsible for your father's actions." "No. But I've spent my whole life making excuses for him." Sarah's voice cracked. "When I was 15, I watched him fire a woman for getting pregnant. He said she was unreliable. When I was 20, I found out he had been cheating on my mother for years. When I was 25, I discovered that the scholarship fund he created in her name was actually a tax shelter." She wiped her eyes. "Every time I told myself it wasn't that bad, that everyone makes mistakes, that he was still my father and I should love him anyway." "What changed?" "I saw the video." "From the hotel." Sarah met his eyes. "I saw him grab you by the throat. I saw your little girl crying, and I realized that I had been making excuses for a monster." Marcus was silent. "I don't expect forgiveness," Sarah continued. "I don't deserve it, but I wanted you to know that not everyone in my family is like him. My brother and I haven't spoken to him in years. We've tried to build different lives to be different people." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I need you to understand something." Sarah leaned forward. "My father is in jail right now awaiting trial. He's lost everything. His money, his reputation, his freedom. But he's not broken. He's angry, and he blames you for all of it." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "He's been making calls from prison," Sarah said. "To old associates, to people who owe him favors. He's not the kind of man who accepts defeat. He's planning something, Planning what? I don't know, but I know my father, and I know that look in his eyes. He had it when he destroyed his first business partner. He had it when he drove my mother to divorce him. He has it now whenever your name comes up. Sarah stood. Watch your back, Mr. Johnson, and watch your daughter, because my father doesn't care about justice or fairness or playing by the rules. He only cares about winning, and if he can't win, he'll make sure everyone else loses too. Bye. She walked to the gate, then stopped. For what it's worth, she said over her shoulder. I'm glad you exposed him. I just wish I had been brave enough to do it myself. She left. Marcus sat alone on the bench, the spring sun suddenly feeling cold on his skin. Lily ran over and climbed into his lap. Who was that lady, Daddy? Just someone who needed to talk. She looked sad. She was baby girl. She was very sad. Marcus held his daughter close, his mind racing. He had thought the battle was over. He was wrong. The first sign of trouble came 2 weeks later. Marcus was dropping Lily off at school when he noticed a black SUV parked across the street. Tinted windows. No plates. When he looked directly at it, the vehicle pulled away slowly. The next day, it was there again. And the day after that. He called Robert. I've already noticed, Robert said. I've had security watching your apartment for the past week. There have been inquiries. Someone has been asking questions about your daily routine, where you shop, where Lily goes to school, what time you leave the house. Marcus's blood ran cold. Who? We don't know yet, but I've increased surveillance on David's communications. He's been making calls to a number we can't trace. What do we do? For now, nothing changes. You go about your life normally. My team will handle the rest. And if they can't? Robert was quiet for a moment. Then we handle it differently. Marcus didn't ask what that meant. He wasn't sure he wanted to know. 3 days later, Lily came home from school with a note in her backpack. Marcus found it while unpacking her lunchbox. A single piece of paper folded in half with no name or address. He opened it. The message was typed in plain black letters. Your daughter is very pretty. It would be a shame if something happened to her. Marcus's hands began to shake. He called Robert immediately. Security teams descended within the hour. The school was put on lockdown. Lily was pulled from class and brought home under armed escort. She didn't understand what was happening. Daddy, why are there so many people here? Did I do something wrong? Marcus knelt down and held her face in his hands. No, baby girl. You didn't do anything wrong. Daddy just wants to make sure you're safe. Safe from what? He couldn't answer, couldn't find the words. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that there are people in the world who would hurt a child to punish her father? Robert arrived within the hour. We've traced the note, he said, pulling Marcus aside. It was printed on standard paper, no fingerprints, no DNA. Whoever did this knew what they were doing. David. Almost certainly. But he's smart enough to use intermediaries. There's no direct connection we can prove. Marcus paced the room, his fists clenched. So what do we do? Hide forever? Let him terrorize my daughter from a prison cell? No. Robert's voice was calm but hard. We end this. How? David Chen has spent his entire life believing he's untouchable, that money and connections can protect him from any consequence. We need to show him that he's wrong. I thought we already did that. The gala, the indictment, everything. That was about exposure. This is about something else. Robert met his eyes. This is about making sure he never threatens your family again. Marcus stared at him. What are you suggesting? Nothing illegal, but nothing gentle either. Robert pulled out his phone. I've made some calls. There are people in David's life, people he's relied on for protection and influence, who are starting to reconsider their loyalties. The federal investigation has made them nervous. They're looking for ways to distance themselves. And some of them have information that could accelerate David's trial, that could ensure a maximum sentence. That could send a message to anyone who might be tempted to help him. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "You're talking about destroying him completely." "I'm talking about protecting your daughter." Robert's voice was steady. David Chen made a choice when he sent that note. He chose to threaten a child. There is no coming back from that. No mercy, no second chances. Marcus looked at the closed door to Lily's room. His daughter was in there, probably confused and scared, wondering why her world had suddenly filled with strangers and security guards. She was 8 years old. She should be thinking about homework and playground games and which Disney movie to watch before bed. Instead, she was a target. Because of him. Because he had dared to stand up and be seen. "Do it," Marcus said quietly. Robert nodded. "It's already begun." The next 3 weeks were brutal. Robert's network moved with surgical precision. Old allies abandoned David. Lawyers who had promised to fight for him suddenly withdrew from the case. Character witnesses refused to testify. Even Victoria, despite her claims of cooperation, found herself facing obstruction charges. But the most devastating blow came from inside the prison itself. David had been making calls to a man named Vincent Rossi, a fixer with connections to organized crime. Rossi had helped David intimidate business rivals in the past. He was the one who had arranged for the threatening note to reach Lily's school. What David didn't know was that Rossi had been a federal informant for the past 5 years. Every call had been recorded, every instruction documented, every threat preserved in crystal-clear audio. The additional charges came down like a hammer. Witness intimidation, conspiracy to commit harassment, making terroristic threats against a minor. David Chen's trial was expedited. He faced life in prison. Marcus watched the news coverage from Robert's study, feeling nothing. No triumph. No satisfaction. No closure. Just emptiness. "You're troubled," Robert said, joining him. "I thought I would feel different when it was over." "It's not over. It won't be over for a long time." Robert sat down heavily. "Justice isn't a destination, Marcus. It's a process. And sometimes the process leaves scars. I wanted Lily to have a normal life. That's all I ever wanted." "She will. In time. Children are resilient." Robert paused. "Elena was resilient. When she was young, she struggled with the weight of our name. She felt suffocated by expectations, but she found her own path. She found you." Marcus closed his eyes. "I miss her every day," he whispered. "I know. So do I." Robert's voice was thick. "But she left you something precious. A daughter who has your strength and her mother's spirit. That's a legacy worth protecting." Marcus opened his eyes and looked at the old man beside him. For the first time, he saw not a billionaire or a power broker or a chess master. He saw a grieving father who had lost his only child, just like Marcus had. "Thank you," Marcus said quietly, "for everything." Robert nodded. They sat together in silence, two men bound by loss and love, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. David Chen's trial lasted 11 days. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence: bank records, emails, witness testimony, recorded phone calls, the threatening note that had been sent to Lily's school. David's defense attorneys did their best, but there was nothing they could do. The evidence was too strong, the witnesses too credible, the crimes too well documented. On the final day, David was allowed to make a statement before sentencing. He stood slowly, his orange jumpsuit hanging loose on a frame that had lost 30 pounds. His hair had gone gray. His hands trembled as he gripped the podium. "I want to say," he began, his voice rough, "that I am not the monster they have made me out to be." The courtroom was silent. "I built a company from nothing. I created jobs. I gave to charity. I supported this community for 25 years. His voice cracked. "Yes, I made mistakes. Yes, I cut corners. But I never intended to hurt anyone." Marcus sat in the gallery watching the man who had grabbed him by the throat and called him worthless. And that night at the hotel, David's eyes found Marcus in the crowd. I was wrong. I know that now. I judged a man by his appearance, and I was wrong." He looked away. "But does that make me a monster? Does that mean I deserve to die in prison? I'm 60 years old. I have children. I have grandchildren I've never met. Is there no room for mercy?" The judge listened impassively. When David finished, she removed her glasses and looked at him for a long moment. "Mr. Chen," she said finally, "I have reviewed the evidence in this case very carefully. I have listened to the testimony of your victims. I have read the letters from employees whose careers you destroyed, from investors, whose life savings you stole from the family, whose child you threatened." Her voice hardened. "You speak of mercy. But in all of this evidence, in all of these documents and recordings and testimonies, I have not found a single instance where you showed mercy to anyone else. You treated people as tools to be used and discarded. You lied without remorse. You threatened an 8-year-old girl because her father had the courage to tell the truth about you." She put her glasses back on. "The sentence of this court is as follows. On the charges of wire fraud, securities fraud, and tax evasion, I sentence you to 25 years in federal prison. On the charges of witness intimidation and making terroristic threats, I sentence you to an additional 15 years to run consecutively. You will not be eligible for parole for a minimum of 30 years. David's face went white. 30 years, he whispered. "I'll die in prison." The judge's expression did not change. "That, Mr. Chen, is a consequence of your choices. Court is adjourned." Guards led David away. He looked over his shoulder once, finding Marcus in the crowd. Their eyes met. And in that moment, Marcus saw something he had never expected to see in David Chen's face. Fear. Real, genuine, soul-crushing fear. The fear of a man who had finally realized that he was not untouchable, that there were consequences, that karma, as Lily would say, had finally arrived. Marcus walked out of the courthouse into the afternoon sun. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Security guards created a path through the crowd. But Marcus barely noticed any of it. He was thinking about Elena, about her smile on their wedding day, about the way she had held Lily in the hospital, tears of joy streaming down her face, about her final words whispered in a voice that was already fading. "Protect our daughter. Teach her to be brave." He had done both. It had cost him everything he thought he knew about himself, but it had been worth it. Robert was waiting by the car. "It's done," he said simply. "Yes." Marcus nodded. "It's done." They drove home in silence. That night, Marcus sat on the edge of Lily's bed. "Daddy, yes, baby girl, is the bad man going away forever?" Marcus stroked her hair. "For a very, very long time." "Good," she yawned. "He was mean." "Yes, he was." "Daddy. I'm glad you're not invisible anymore." Marcus felt his heart clench. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "Before, when you were a janitor, people didn't see you. They looked right through you like you weren't there." She blinked up at him with Elena's eyes. "But now they see you. And they know you're a good person." Marcus couldn't speak for a moment. "You always saw me," he finally said. "You and Mommy. That's all that ever mattered." Lily smiled sleepily. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, baby girl. More than anything in the world." She closed her eyes and drifted to sleep. Marcus sat there for a long time, watching her breathe, feeling the weight of the past months slowly begin to lift. David Chen was gone. The threats were over. And tomorrow, for the first time in a very long time, Marcus Johnson would wake up without fear. That was enough. That was everything. 6 months passed like water through open fingers. Marcus moved into a modest house in the suburbs not far from Robert's estate, but far enough to feel like his own space. He could have afforded a mansion. He could have afforded 10 mansions. But that wasn't what Elena would have wanted. That wasn't what Lily needed. The house had 3 bedrooms, a small garden, and a swing set in the backyard. It looked like every other house on the street, and that was exactly the point. Lily adjusted faster than Marcus expected. Children were resilient, Robert had said. And he was right. Within weeks, she was back to her old self, laughing and playing and asking endless questions about everything from dinosaurs to black holes. But Marcus noticed something different about her. She stood taller now, spoke louder. When other kids tried to push her around on the playground, she pushed back not with fists, but with words. "My daddy says everyone deserves respect," she told a boy who had called her classmates stupid, even people who don't know how to give it. Marcus heard about it from her teacher, who couldn't stop smiling. "She's something special," the teacher said. "You're raising her right." Marcus didn't know about that. He was just doing his best, same as always. But maybe that was enough. The Wellington Hotel called in March. Marcus was in his garden planting tomatoes when his phone rang. He didn't recognize the number, but something made him answer. "Mr. Johnson, this is Gerald Morrison. I'm the new general manager at the Wellington." Marcus set down his trowel. "How can I help you?" "Well, sir, I understand there's been some history between you and this establishment. I've reviewed the incident reports from last year, and I want to personally apologize for how you were treated." "That wasn't your fault." "No, but it happened under our roof, and I believe in accountability." Morrison paused. "The reason I'm calling Mr. Johnson is that we're restructuring our staff. Several positions have opened up, and I wondered if you might be interested in returning." Marcus almost laughed. "You want me to come back and mop floors?" "No, sir. I want you to come back as Director of Operations. You know this hotel better than anyone. You spent 11 years learning every inch of it. We could use that expertise." Marcus was silent for a long moment. "Mr. Morrison, do you know who I am?" "I know you're the son-in-law of Robert Williams. I know you own the company that owns this hotel. But that's not why I'm calling. I'm calling because the staff still talk about you. They say you were the hardest worker they'd ever seen, that you treated everyone with respect from the executive chef to the dishwashers. That's the kind of person I want running my operations." Marcus looked at his garden, at the tomato plants just beginning to sprout, at the swing set where Lily played every afternoon. "Can I think about it?" "Take all the time you need." That night, Marcus told Robert about the offer. "What do you want to do?" Robert asked. "I don't know. Part of me wants to go back, to prove that I was never ashamed of who I was or what I did." "And the other part?" Marcus sighed. "The other part wants to stay here, plant vegetables, watch Lily grow up, live a quiet life." Robert nodded slowly. "Elena used to feel the same way, torn between two worlds. She never fully belonged to either one." "How did she handle it?" "She made a choice. She chose you. She chose simplicity and love over wealth and power." Robert smiled sadly. "It was the happiest I ever saw her." Marcus thought about that for a long time. The next morning he called Morrison back. "I'll do it," he said, "but I have conditions." "Name them." "I work 3 days a week. I need time with my daughter. And I want to create a scholarship fund for the children of hotel staff. College tuition books, whatever they need." Morrison didn't hesitate. "Done. One more thing. I want to hire the staff who were fired after the incident with David Chen, every single one of them." There was a pause. "That might be complicated. Some of them have moved on." "Find them. Offer them their jobs back with a raise. If they've found better positions, congratulate them and move on. But give them the choice." "Understood." Morrison's voice was warm. "When can you start?" Marcus looked at Lily, who was eating breakfast and humming to herself. "Next Monday." Walking back into the Wellington Hotel was strange. Marcus stood in the lobby, the same lobby where David Chen had grabbed him by the throat, and felt nothing. No anger, no fear, no desire for revenge. Just peace. The staff gathered to welcome him. Housekeepers and bellhops and front desk clerks. Many of them the same faces he had worked alongside for 11 years. They applauded when he walked in. Some of them cried. Maria, the woman who had babysat Lily on the night of the incident, pushed through the crowd and hugged him tight. "I always knew you were special," she whispered. Always. Marcus hugged her back, unable to speak. Gerald Morrison gave him a tour of the new offices. Director of Operations. His own space. His own team. His own responsibilities. This feels wrong, Marcus said, looking at the nameplate on the door. Why? Because 6 months ago I was cleaning these floors. Now I'm supposed to be in charge of the people who do that work. Morrison studied him. Is that what you think this job is? Being in charge of people? Isn't it? No. Morrison shook his head. This job is about making sure every person who works here feels valued, feels seen, feels like they matter, if anyone understands that it's you. Marcus touched the nameplate, his name etched in brass. Maybe Morrison was right. Maybe this wasn't about being in charge. Maybe it was about lifting others up, the way Elena had always taught him. Summer arrived hot and humid. Lily turned 9. Marcus threw her a party in the backyard. Nothing fancy, just cake and games, and a few friends from school. Robert and Margaret came. Maria came. Even Sarah Chen sent a gift, a book about brave girls who changed the world. Lily opened it and smiled. Daddy, can you read this to me tonight? Of course, baby girl. That evening, after the guests had gone and the cake had been eaten, Marcus sat on Lily's bed with the book in his hands. Chapter 1, he began. The girl who refused to be invisible. Lily snuggled against him, her eyes already heavy. Daddy. Yes. Am I brave? Marcus looked at his daughter, at her mother's eyes and her grandmother's spirit and her own fierce, beautiful soul. You're the bravest person I know. She smiled and closed her eyes. Marcus kept reading until her breathing grew slow and steady. Then he sat there in the darkness, listening to her sleep, feeling grateful for everything he had, everything he almost lost, everything he would protect with his last breath. In September, Marcus received an unexpected letter. It came to the hotel, addressed to him personally, with no return address. The handwriting was cramped and uneven, as if written by someone whose hands no longer worked properly. Marcus opened it in his office alone. Mr. Johnson. You don't know me, but I know you. My name is Thomas Webb. I was David Chen's driver for 15 years. I saw everything. The bribes, the threats, the way he treated people like garbage. I was there the night he grabbed you at the hotel. I watched from the car. I saw your little girl crying, and I did nothing. I've spent every day since then hating myself for my cowardice. I told myself I needed the job, needed the money, needed to keep my head down and survive. But that's just an excuse. The truth is, I was afraid. You weren't afraid. You stood up to him. You told the truth. And because of you, a lot of people who suffered in silence finally got justice. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that you changed something in me. You made me realize that being invisible isn't the same as being safe. It's just a slower kind of death. I'm going to testify in the appeals hearing next month. I have information that could put David Chen away for even longer. His lawyers have been trying to get his sentence reduced, and I won't let that happen. It might cost me everything. But I'd rather lose everything standing up than keep everything staying silent. Thank you for showing me that. Thomas Webb. Marcus read the letter 3 times, then he folded it carefully and put it in his desk drawer. That night he told Robert about it. Thomas Webb, Robert said thoughtfully. I remember him. Quiet man, always in the background. He's going to testify. So I've heard. My lawyers have been in contact with the prosecution. His testimony could add another decade to David's sentence. Marcus shook his head. That's not what matters. Then what does? He said I changed something in him, that I showed him it was possible to stand up. Marcus looked out the window at the city lights. I never wanted to be an example. I just wanted to protect Lily. Sometimes that's how it works. You do the right thing for the people you love, and the ripples spread farther than you ever imagined. Marcus thought about that. About the staff at the hotel, who now walked with their heads a little higher. About Sarah Chen, who had testified against her own father. About Thomas Webb, about to risk everything to tell the truth. Maybe that was the real legacy. Not the money or the properties or the power, but the courage that spread from one person to another like light passing through darkness. October brought rain and change. Marcus was leaving the hotel one evening when he saw a familiar figure standing across the street. Victoria Chen. She looked nothing like the woman who had screamed at him over a spilled glass of wine. Her designer clothes had been replaced by simple jeans and a plain coat. Her perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her face, once sharp with entitlement, now looked hollow and tired. She crossed the street and stopped a few feet away. "Mr. Johnson?" "Mrs. Chen." "I wondered if I could have a moment of your time." Marcus studied her. His first instinct was to say no, to walk away, to leave her standing in the rain the way she had tried to leave his daughter without a school. But something in her eyes stopped him. Pain. Real pain. Not the performative grief of someone seeking sympathy, but the raw, aching wound of someone who had lost everything and was only now beginning to understand why. "5 minutes," he said. They walked to a coffee shop around the corner. Victoria ordered nothing. Marcus ordered black coffee and didn't drink it. "I'm not here to apologize," Victoria said finally. "I mean, I should apologize, I know that. But I don't think you'd believe me, and I don't think it would matter." "Then why are you here?" "Because I need you to understand something." She looked at her hands folded tight in her lap. "I grew up poor. Really poor. The kind of poor where you don't eat for days, and you wear the same clothes until they fall apart. I swore I would never go back to that. I would do whatever it took to be rich, to be powerful, to be someone that nobody could hurt." Marcus said nothing. "When I met David, he was everything I wanted. Confident, successful, untouchable. I convinced myself that his cruelty was just strength, that his contempt for others was just ambition. I looked the other way because looking directly at him would have meant seeing myself." Her voice cracked. "That night at the hotel, when he grabbed you, when he called you worthless, I saw the look in your eyes. You weren't afraid. You weren't angry. You were sad, like you pitied him." She met his gaze. Nobody had ever looked at David that way, and in that moment I knew that everything we had built was rotten, that we weren't strong, we were just cruel. And cruelty isn't power, it's weakness wearing a mask. Marcus took a sip of his coffee. It was cold now. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to know that I've changed. Or I'm trying to change. I don't expect you to believe me. I don't expect anyone to believe me. But it's true." Victoria wiped her eyes. "I volunteer now. At a shelter for homeless families. I see people there who remind me of myself back when I had nothing. And I try to help them. Not because it makes me look good, but because it's the right thing to do." "That's good." "It doesn't make up for what I did." "No. It doesn't." Marcus set down his cup. "But it's a start." Victoria nodded slowly. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she said. "I'm just asking for a chance to be better. That's all anyone can ask for, right? A chance to be better than they were." Marcus thought about his own journey, the years of invisibility, the moment he finally stood up, the price he paid, and the rewards he never expected. "Everyone deserves a chance," he said finally. "What you do with it is up to you." Victoria stood. "Thank you for listening." "Mrs. Chen." She turned. "My daughter goes to Westbrook Academy. There's a program there for underprivileged students. They need mentors, people who understand what it's like to struggle." Victoria's eyes widened. "If you're serious about changing," Marcus continued, "that might be a good place to start." She stared at him for a long moment. "Why would you help me after everything I did?" Marcus smiled. "Because someone once helped me when I didn't deserve it. My wife. She saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. She gave me a chance to be better than I was." He stood and put on his coat. "That's what love does, Mrs. Chen. It sees possibility in people who can't see it in themselves, and it gives them the strength to become who they were meant to be. He walked out of the coffee shop, leaving Victoria sitting alone with her thoughts. The rain had stopped. The sky was clearing. And somewhere Marcus knew Elena was smiling. Christmas Eve arrived cold and crisp. Robert's mansion was decorated simply just a tree in the corner and candles in the windows. Margaret had insisted on minimal fuss. The holidays were about family, she said, not performance. Marcus and Lily arrived at 6. Maria came too officially adopted into the Williams clan as honorary grandmother. The house smelled like roasting turkey and cinnamon and something sweet that Margaret wouldn't identify. "It's a surprise," she said, winking at Lily. They ate dinner together, the 5 of them, around a table that could have seated 30. They talked about nothing important about Lily's school and Marcus's work, and the garden that had produced an unexpected bounty of tomatoes. After dinner, they gathered in the living room. Robert stood by the fireplace looking older than Marcus had ever seen him, but also more at peace. "I want to say something," Robert announced. "If you'll all indulge an old man." Everyone fell quiet. "This year has been difficult. We've faced challenges I never anticipated. We've lost things we can never get back." His eyes flickered to a photograph of Elena on the mantel. "But we've also gained something precious. We've gained each other." He looked at Marcus. "When Elena brought you home for the first time, I was skeptical. You weren't what I expected for my daughter. You were quiet and humble and seemed almost afraid of your own shadow." Marcus smiled slightly. "But Elena saw something in you that I couldn't. She saw strength, real strength, the kind that doesn't need to prove itself, the kind that lifts others up instead of pushing them down." Robert's voice thickened. "I've spent my life building an empire, accumulating wealth and power and influence. But watching you these past months, I've realized something. You've built something far more valuable. You've built character. You've built integrity. You've built a family that will endure long after the money is gone." He raised his glass. "To Marcus, the son I never had, the father Elena always knew you would be." Everyone raised their glasses. Lily tugged on Marcus's sleeve. "Daddy, why is everyone crying?" Marcus wiped his eyes and laughed. "Because we're happy, baby girl. These are happy tears." Later that night, after Lily had fallen asleep on the couch and Margaret had retired to bed, Marcus and Robert sat alone by the fire. "I've been thinking about the future," Robert said quietly. "What about it? I'm 82 years old. I won't be here forever. And when I'm gone, all of this..." He gestured vaguely. "The company, the properties, the investments, it all passes to you." Marcus shook his head. "I don't want it." "I know. That's exactly why you should have it." Robert smiled. "The best leaders are the ones who never wanted to lead. They're the ones who do it out of duty, not ambition. I'm not a leader. I'm a janitor who got lucky. You're a father who stood up for his daughter. That's the purest form of leadership there is." They sat in silence for a while, watching the flames dance. "What do you want me to do with it?" Marcus asked finally. "All that money, all that power." "Whatever you think is right." Robert leaned back in his chair. "Build schools, fund hospitals, create opportunities for people who never had any, or don't. Give it all away. Live simply. Raise Lily to be kind." "That's not an answer." "No, it's a choice. The most important choice you'll ever make." Robert closed his eyes. "Elena made her choice when she married you. She chose love over legacy, simplicity over spectacle, and she was happier than I ever was." His voice faded to a whisper. "Maybe that's the real inheritance, Marcus. Not the money, not the power, but the freedom to choose your own path, the wisdom to know what matters, the courage to let go of everything else." Marcus watched the old man drift off to sleep. Outside, snow began to fall, soft and quiet and pure, like a blessing from somewhere beyond. 1 year later, Marcus stood in a place he had never expected to visit. The federal penitentiary was gray and cold, surrounded by walls and wire and guards with expressionless faces. It felt like a tomb for the living. David Chen was waiting in the visitors' room. He looked like a ghost of the man who had stood on stage at the gala accepting applause and admiration. His hair had gone completely white. His face was gaunt. His hands, once so quick to grab and threaten, lay flat and still on the table between them. "You came," David said. His voice was hollow. "You asked to see me." "I didn't think you would." Marcus sat down across from him. "I almost didn't." They looked at each other for a long moment. Two men whose lives had collided and shattered and been rebuilt into something neither recognized. "Why did you want to see me?" Marcus asked. David was quiet for a while. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "I've been in here for 13 months. 13 months of concrete walls and fluorescent lights and men who would kill you for a pack of cigarettes. I've had nothing to do but think. Think about what? About that night, at the hotel. About what I did. What I said." David's eyes were wet. "I called you worthless. I grabbed you by the throat in front of your little girl. I tried to destroy your life because you made me feel small." He laughed bitterly. "The irony is, I was the small one. I just didn't know it." Marcus said nothing. "I've been a monster my whole life," David continued. "I told myself it was necessary, that you had to be ruthless to succeed, that kindness was weakness, that the only thing that mattered was winning." He shook his head. "But you can't win at life, can you? It's not a competition. It's just time. Time to be good or bad. Time to lift people up or tear them down. And when the time runs out, all that's left is what you built." "What did you build?" Marcus asked quietly. David looked at him with eyes full of something Marcus had never expected to see. Shame. "Nothing. I built nothing. My company is gone. My wife left me. My children won't speak to me. I'm going to die in this place alone and nobody will mourn." Tears spilled down his cheeks. "I had everything, and I wasted it all being cruel." Marcus watched him cry, feeling something shift inside his chest. Not sympathy exactly, not forgiveness, but something close to understanding. "Why are you telling me this?" Marcus asked. "Because I need you to know." David wiped his face with shaking hands. "I need someone to know that I finally understand. That the man who grabbed you by the throat was wrong. Not just legally wrong, not just socially wrong, wrong in his soul, wrong in every way that matters." He looked at Marcus with desperate eyes. "I can't take it back, I know that, but I needed to say it, to someone who would understand." Marcus was silent for a long time. The clock on the wall ticked. Guards moved in the hallway. Somewhere, a door slammed shut. "My daughter asked me once why you were so mean," Marcus said finally. "She was 8 years old trying to understand why a grown man would hurt her father. Do you know what I told her?" David shook his head. "I told her that some people are in so much pain that they don't know how to do anything but spread it around, that they hurt others because they're hurting inside, that the best thing we can do is not become like them." David closed his eyes. "She sounds like her mother." "She is." Marcus stood up. "I'm not going to forgive you, Mr. Chen. Not today. Maybe not ever. What you did to my family caused pain that will take years to heal." David nodded, accepting the truth. "But I'm also not going to hate you." Marcus looked down at the broken man before him. "Hate is a prison too. And I've spent too much of my life in cages I built myself." He turned toward the door. "Mr. Johnson." Marcus stopped. "For what it's worth," David said, his voice cracking. "I'm sorry. Truly sorry. Not because I got caught. Not because I'm suffering. But because I finally see what I was. And I hate what I see." Marcus looked back at him one last time. "Then change it," he said. "You have 30 years. Use them." He walked out of the prison and into the sunlight. Lily was waiting in the car with Maria. Daddy! She threw her arms around him. I missed you. I missed you too, baby girl. He held her tight, breathing in the smell of her shampoo, feeling her warmth against his chest. I missed you so much. Was the bad man mean to you again? Marcus thought about David Chen alone in his cell, finally confronting the wreckage of his life. No, sweetheart. He wasn't mean. He was just sad. Why was he sad? Because he spent his whole life chasing things that don't matter. And when he finally stopped, he realized he had nothing left. Lily considered this with the gravity that only children possess. That's why we chase love instead, right, Daddy? Because love is what matters. Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. That's exactly right, baby girl. Love is what matters. He started the car and drove away from the prison, away from the past, toward the future that Elena had always dreamed of. A future built on kindness. A future built on courage. A future built on the simple revolutionary act of being seen. That night, Marcus sat at his desk and wrote a letter. Not to David Chen, not to Robert, not to anyone living. He wrote to Elena. My love. It's been 4 years since you left us, and not a day goes by that I don't think of you. Lily is growing up so fast. She has your eyes, your laugh, your stubborn determination to see the best in everyone. I want you to know that I finally understand what you were trying to teach me. All those years when you told me to be patient, to be humble, to trust that goodness would prevail. I thought you were naive. I thought the world was too cruel for kindness to matter. I was wrong. I stood up, Elena. I stepped out of the shadows and let the world see who I really am. And do you know what I found? I found that the things I was hiding from weren't real. The fear, the shame, the belief that I wasn't enough. They were just stories I told myself to stay small. But you never saw me as small. You saw me as I could be. As I should be. As I finally am. I'm raising our daughter the way you would have wanted. She's brave and kind and full of light. She asks about you every day. She wears that necklace you gave her and tells everyone that her mommy is an angel watching over her. Maybe you are. Maybe you've been with us this whole time, guiding us through the darkness, showing us the way home. I love you, Elena. I will always love you. And I promise on everything I am and everything I hope to be that I will make you proud. Forever yours, Marcus. He folded the letter and placed it in the drawer with all the others. Then he walked to Lily's room and watched her sleep. Outside, the stars were bright. Inside, his heart was full. And for the first time in his life, Marcus Johnson knew exactly who he was. Not a janitor, not a billionaire, not a victim or a hero or a symbol. Just a father who loved his daughter. Just a man who chose kindness over cruelty. Just a soul who finally learned that the greatest power isn't the power to destroy. It's the power to heal. It's the power to forgive. It's the power to stand in the light and let the world see your truth. That was Elena's gift to him. That was his gift to Lily. And that gift would echo through generations long after the money was gone and the headlines were forgotten. Because love never dies. It just changes form. And in the end, love is the only thing that matters, the only thing that lasts, the only thing that wins.